The rise of professional rugby in the nation's capital is here, but the road to glory has only just begun. This is the Road to Glory podcast. Home for all Old Glory DC faithful, talking all things rugby in the DC region and beyond. Now your host, Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome to the Old Glory DC official podcast, The Road to Glory. I'm your host, Ryan Yee, and of course, with me every single week, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt, Farrah Douglas, talking all things rugby in the DC region and beyond. And guys, what a week to open up the MLR season. Obviously a big time victory that we're going to get into with the Old Glory DC open up the year with an absolute banger of a performance against the new Chicago Hounds. A record week for some across the league with setting attendance records. We got good performances throughout the weekend. Guys, just how was the opening week of the MLR for you guys?
Brilliant. Just brilliant.
Yeah, lots of exciting rugby. Roly, I must add, you looked pretty good there on the sidelines there for the Old Glory DC game. You looked not too shabby there, but all put together.
I'll just leave it at that. But I tell you what, I had a first-class viewing point to watch Old Glory go to work, and they were awesome this weekend, boys and girls.
Yeah, and we're going to obviously break that all down. Again, jam-packed episode. I know for our Irish fellows here on this podcast, no Six Nations this week, so you got a little bit break, but it gave you the chance to focus on the MLR, and obviously it did not disappoint. Later in the show, we got Jamason Fa'anana-Schultz, team captain of Old Glory DC. We're going to break down the performance against the Chicago Hounds with him, his outlook for the season, and his kind of mindset in 2023. We also have a special guest, ESPN's Trinidad Bavio. I'm sure all of our viewers and listeners know the Argentinian influence that this Old Glory DC's team has heading into 2023. Going to talk a little bit about that with her, and obviously what everyone waits for, our prediction segment at the end. Old Glory DC not playing this week, but they will have a matchup in the coming weeks. But we're gonna still make some predictions here. But yeah, let's just talk about this overall weekend. And like I mentioned, historic weekend kind of encompasses the whole thing. I mean, the San Diego Legion setting a brand new attendance record, over 11,000 tickets sold, smashing the old record of just above 7,000, and that just kind of, I think, encapsulates the hype that is around this 2023 season and how far the MLR has come in the years that it continues trying to be finding its place, I should say, in the sports scene within the North American sports world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's a couple of standout performances this weekend, certainly from Seattle, New England, and Rugby ATL, as well as obviously Old Glory DC. But a couple of specifics that I saw from the games this weekend was that New England really just had better ball carrying meters, they had better tackle percentage, and they had better discipline than Nola Gold, in which they won 36-12, because they had 5 penalties less than Nola throughout that game. And I thought they're going to be a really hard team to beat this year. Obviously, good season from last year, just failing the final hurdle. I think they're going to come back with a bit of vengeance this year as well. Also, just something to pick out from the Rugby ATL Toronto game was the fullback Martini Talapusi, who had a bit of a standout performance. It was not a flawless performance, still has a little bit of work to do, but he carried for 119 meters. He had 5 defenders beaten with 2 line breaks, and he was pretty electric on attack. So all in all, I thought it was a pretty awesome opening round of Major League Rugby, and excited to chat about it some more.
Absolutely. Again, I'm going to stick with the Old Glory game here because I was right there. I just thought it was amazing to see the difference in that first 20 minutes from last year. You know, we'd be down at least a couple of scores early. This year, we were up after 30 seconds, I think it was. Colin Gross, having scored on debut, immediately gives that kid the confidence to play a full game, and he really showed out, and it was a brilliant performance. I loved the fact that Tito Bonilla was just steering the team around. Danny looked rejuvenated because the forwards are actually giving him a platform to play on. He hit the filthiest step of the weekend. That if you saw that try, that was an ankle breaker right there. I mean, God help trying to tackle that. But guys, can you? No, they didn't exactly. But for the first time since Jason Robertson was here, in my opinion, we finally have a fly half that is worthy of the OG shirt, because Diaz was just on a different level there at the weekend. And I think he plays very similar to Robertson. He runs up to the line. He makes those decisions late. He sucks in defenders. It must be brilliant to play with him because he gives everybody the ball and space. And he had several assists on the weekend. And yeah, I'm really excited for the next game already.
I like the pack. I mean, I thought it was just a fantastic game altogether. We came out with tempo. You know, the kickoff, it's another set piece. Like, it's one of those things that I think typically we don't think about as like a really big opportunity, but it's, you know, it's a time to regain possession, and it's a time when the other team's kicking the ball to you. They're like intentionally giving you possession. So like, what are you going to do with that? And I thought that we handled kickoffs really well, but I was really impressed with the work rate of the type 5. They were running strong with the ball and working to get off the ground, making big hits. Ascaro was just like, he was a workhorse that entire, like, that game. I mean, just putting his shoulders in, running the ball in their, that kind of forward pod shape. The back row had real high work rate. Scrums are pretty solid. I think overall, for me, as a pack-centered person, I love everyone else, but, you know, props, we like our type 5. I thought that we set a really good foundation to build upon with our set pieces, kind of moving as we move forward through the season.
And you guys did mention that last week. I mean, you guys were all excited about this front pack and the impact that they could have heading into the season. And I think also another discussion point that we had last episode was the fact that when we were reflecting on the 2022 year, obviously there wasn't necessarily an issue with this team scoring points. It was just allowing other teams to keep up with them from that standpoint and not playing defense in those big moments. And that kind of shifted here, the conversation in this match here. And a stat that really stood out to me was the forward pack being physical and all 8 starters racking up double-digit tackles throughout the match. And for me, that was, I think, one of the big things that really made a statement to me that this OGDC team is different. This is something different that we're going to see in 2023, and it's something that fans should be very excited for in Washington.
Well, Ryan,
sorry.
Go ahead, Farrah. No, please go right ahead.
Okay, sorry. The defense was really interesting for me, you know, because that definitely was, like we talked about last week, was definitely a weak point for us last year. But it was this really weird middle ground of like patience. But when they went after it. They went after it hard. So Absolutely. It was like, yeah. It was just kind of like quietly deadly. I don't know how else to describe it, but like for the tackle count that we had, when you go back and you watch the replay and you look at the defense, like they were working, but it doesn't look, you know what I mean? Like the numbers don't match that. Like it was like watching a lion out in the high desert waiting to like snatch its prey. And when those little kittens thought they were going, nope, we were like, sorry, gonna have a snack right now. It was really nice to watch.
For me, it makes life very comfortable when you're watching rugby and you know that your hooker's going to make a throw and that you're going to have a platform and an opportunity to score. Rugby's really simple when you have a fly half and a hooker, so you can like get a penalty, the ball down the line, have a great jumper like Stan South or Lataro, go up, get that ball, bring it down, and then release this brilliant backline. Makes rugby fun again, folks, you know, like you can see it. And I've been waiting for 2 years to see it again. And now we finally have it. Like, Gavin, maybe you can speak on it being the line-out guru that you are. But Souchon starts, they're straight to stand south as his sort of safety net. But Bavaro also causing a lot of damage on the defensive lineouts, stealing ball, getting up quickly, getting those turnovers. Those are invaluable statistics come the end of a game.
100%. I couldn't agree more. But I mean, you hit on the nail on the head there when you said, you're excited. It's a very different look All Glory team, and I think that's a lot to get excited about. Obviously, new coaching staff in there, they're still getting to know each other. I think this is an incredibly exciting situation to be in because, unfortunately, I wasn't there at the weekend, but you could tell from the start, unlike last season, that when we got ahead, and that was it, we were planning on staying ahead. It wasn't going to be a back and forth like it was in previous years, or it wasn't going to be, almost runs. And there was a sense about the team, and that's really, really exciting. And just another special mention, you mentioned him already, Colin Gross. Thorn on my side here at Navy for the last few years at Army.
I was waiting for the plug.
Yeah, I know. It pains me to say, but no, he's an outstanding young man when he was and player when he's at Army against us here at Navy, and he's taken Major League Rugby in his stride and Old Glory DC in his stride. And he's top performer. It was really great to see him go well.
So athletic,
unbelievable, isn't he? He's fantastic.
I saw him in the preseason. He did a 360 flip, and in a game. He just got up in it and landed on his feet and just kept going. I was like, okay, it's a little special right there.
And then talk about building confidence too, right? When you open up a season like that, obviously there is still work to be done, but it's far improvements from what we saw at the tail end of 2022. So to start like that and go out here and put a performance like that and it's got to feel good against a Chicago Hounds team that had as much hype as it did heading into this season, thinking that, hey, they've already won the MLR Shield before they even set up a lineup, and for OGDC to then go out there and really prove those guys wrong and say, hey, no, we're still a force to be reckoned with. You got to earn your stripes here in the MLR.
And Chicago's going to be okay as well. Let me tell you, that's too good a team to lie down for sure. They didn't quite have all their horses in, and they didn't have that continuity that of a team playing together. I think Dallas is sort of in the similar boat. We had been in that boat every other year, but this year we have had all our guys in camp early, and the proof was in the pudding there. We had everything firing, or at least good 85%, I'd say, firing. Every single team is a work in progress right now, but we are nearer the top of the pack this year than we were last year, that's for sure.
But we have to make sure that we remain consistent to that. It's great to get out of the starting box early. It's a win, first time I think in Old Glory's history, win on opening day, so it's fantastic. Okay, but it's remaining consistent throughout the season. Every team's going to continue to get better, as you said. Are we going to have the strength and depth, and we're going to have the ability to remain consistent winning? And the answers are looking pretty positive right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty exciting to be an Old Glory DC fan right now. You can kind of see it on Roly's face right now about how excited he is after going through with what he's been going through over the past 2 years, like he's mentioned. But no, it's super exciting stuff, and it's going to be interesting for Old Glory DC. Obviously, coming in after that first matchup, they do have a bye week this week, so they'll have time to rest up, kind of reflect on the match they had. They will take on Rugby New York in 2 weeks' time. That's going to be on Masson for all of you to watch as well, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach this whole thing. And a guy that kind of has that insight into that is the guy that we're going to be speaking to after the break here, team captain Jamason Fa'anana-Schultz, who's going to break down their approach to this bye week, the impact that starting off big has in this performance against the Chicago Hounds. And it's going to be super exciting stuff to speak with him about the outlook of this 2023 year, because I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of a different vibe than what we've had interviews with him in seasons past. And as now the team captain, I'm sure that he's going to be leading the way here in 2023, and that interview is going to be coming up right after a short break here. We'll be right back here on the Road to Glory podcast, but first, got to mention the St. James is the premier sports, wellness, and entertainment destination in the country. A first-class training facility makes first-class teams. Old Glory DC is proud to call the St. James our official performance training partner. Be your best at the St. James. You won't want to miss this conversation up with Jamason Fa'anana-Schultz, team captain of Old Glory DC, coming right up here on the Road to Glory podcast.
Experience how sous vide is reimagined the way we eat from the company trusted by the most renowned chefs in the world. Visit cuisinesolutions.com or your local retailer to get a taste.
Knowledge. It's where innovation begins. It's what leads us to discovery and motivates us to succeed. It's why we ask the tough questions and what leads us to the answers. At Leidos, we're standing behind those working to improve the world's health, safety, and efficiency. Leidos.
Are you looking for an exciting and unforgettable live sporting event? Look no further than Old Glory DC, your hometown Major League Rugby franchise. Don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see professional rugby up close. With a mix of strength, skill, and strategy, rugby is a sport like no other. Whether you're coming alone, with friends, or looking for unique family entertainment, Old Glory DC has something for everyone. Be a part of this unique experience. Get your tickets now at oldglorydc.com. That's oldglorydc.com.
Shift into Easy Drive at Sheehy and discover an easier way to find your next vehicle. Sheehy Easy Drive works harder to get you a better value when you sell or trade in, find you more options within your area, and offers you one easy price. Buy in store or online, so you can focus more on where you need to go, not how you'll get there. For an easy answer to your car needs, shift into Easy Drive at Sheehy.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
Pro rugby in the nation's capital is here. Are you on board the road to glory? Back to upping the flags with your hosts Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome back to the Road to Glory podcast. Ryan Yee, Farrah Douglas, Gavin Hickey, and Roland Pratt, and we broke down what was a big time opening of a season with this Old Glory DC side, and who better to get a pulse of this team and how they're feeling after that big victory against the new Chicago Hounds, the new league members there in the MLR, than bringing on the team captain himself, Jamason Fa'anana-Schultz. Jamason, thank you for hopping on the show here. Really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thanks guys for having me. I always love coming on here.
There we go. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Well, let's get off right at the get-go, because I think all of our viewers and listeners want to talk about, because I think if you're not feeling the juices still from that match from Saturday, but how you guys performed and opened the season, especially after what was a little bit of a heartbreaking 2022 year, to come out the gates like that. Just your overall thoughts on that big-time win against the Chicago Hounds and making a statement like that right off the get-go.
Well, it definitely started from the preseason. You know, we had our number one goal was to go into this first round against Chicago, and not really focusing on the win, but more focusing on our individual performances and just doing our job, because we knew with the new coaching staff and the new players we had, there's enough experience just to play rugby and enjoy it, have fun, and then the result will come. So I guess a change of mentality again from last year, trying to get a win, to this year, just focusing on doing our jobs, enjoying the game of rugby and the love of it. So what we do, we love rugby, so we the sport. And when you take the result-driven mentality out of it, just focus on doing our things, then, you know, the result will take care of itself, which you saw on the weekend. And you saw a lot of smiles on the boys' faces, which is a lot different than previous seasons. And it does come down to just having fun, you know, getting involved with the DC crowd, and, you know, the support and love for DC. So the boys are enjoying it, they're having fun, and that's the mentality of this season, really.
Awesome. So I'm going to hit you up next. You may have addressed some of it, but my question for you is, how helpful is it to start off this new season with such a big, impactful win like this weekend, and especially coming off of a really, really tough season in 2022?
Well, I guess from the weekend, you know, nothing was perfect. You know, you saw we had a lot of turnovers. I think our penalty count was at above what we wanted at. I think maybe 11 or 12. So the good thing about this, and the exciting part, is that we have a lot to learn from this game, and there's still so much improvement. And, you know, getting those connections with our new players coming in, and especially the young players like Colin coming in and having an outstanding start to his professional career. And it's awesome to have, you know, the depth like that coming from the US colleges, with Colin coming in, and, you know, the Argentina boys coming up. You know, a lot of them are actually US qualified, so that also helps. And, you know, having that depth is really creating an environment of pushing everybody in the team to, you know, to fight for a spot. Whereas I think previous years, there wasn't much depth. So we already knew what the weekly team was going to be. You know, everyone knew what the starting 15 was, but now this year it's actually kind of awesome that, you know, no one's position is safe, not even mine, and which is pretty cool, because, you know, having that environment like this is, you know, something very special. And different to what a lot of teams I think in this league have.
Well, Jamason, I think it was probably great for the team to see Colin score so early in the game. But I just before he scored, I realized that it was both you and Stan South, our two captains, that got in the first two carries, setting the tone immediately, get the captains the ball. Made those couple of excellent ruck situations, but then finally in the last few minutes, I saw you take a arm shoulder knock, looked like a stinger of sorts. Can you tell us if you're okay or not?
No, everything's all good. It's part of rugby. If you don't come out a little bit injured, then I don't think you play yet.
Oh, thank God.
Could have some more wounds.
Exactly.
Jama, how are you, pal? Doing well?
Hey, Gav, how you doing?
Good to see you. And congratulations on a great start to the season. How captaincy, is that something that you were going into the season looking for? Is that something that you had in mind? Is that something that was surprised upon you? How did that work out?
Well, let's get the elephant out of the room first. Definitely not. Obviously, I had a terrible year last year, suspensions and all that kind of stuff. So, for me coming into this season, it was actually quite awesome, surreal to be able to take this opportunity up, because never would I have thought in my imagination that the team would have faith in me leading the team for this season. So for me to be able to be put in this position is actually kind of a blessing in disguise, because it's definitely helped with my my mentality going into games and how I approach the games and how I approach different environments and the trainings especially. So I've been in DC and this team since the beginning, so I've seen all the growing pains and all the changes of coaches and players coming and going. So I guess from a story point of view, I think it was just always meant to be. I feel comfortable in this position. I feel comfortable in the coaching staff and everyone in the organization, from like Marcelo coming in, we got Brian with the marketing stuff, Alex Carlson coming in. We all have the same vision, and that vision is just to grow and spread the love of rugby in DC and the DMV area. And I reckon they're doing a bloody awesome job, because just the environments of not just the players but even the staff coming in and talking to us, and explaining to us the situations of behind the scenes. It opens the players' eyes up of, wow, this is a special organization, and people are doing this not for the money at all. It's for the love, and that's what rugby is about. Just we don't play this sport. You have to be a little bit crazy and have to love it a little bit too much to play the sport of rugby, which is kind of amazing. So I think it's the players this year understand how much sacrifice the owners and the coaches, and especially the families of the players this year. And that's sort of opened up an extra level of, I think, the players' performance level, which is, once you start mentioning the sacrifices that people make, that goes back to inside to their brain and be like, damn, if I'm going to sacrifice all these hours in my life, then why not give it all I have?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You mentioned there about the changing your approach a little bit to games based on your captaincy now. I mean, I think it's no secret that you are one of your X factors is your aggression, your physicality. It's critical to your performance a lot of the time. But do you think that there's any chance the captaincy could in any way nullify your X factor, or is that something you're just going to have to be a little more careful about now going forward?
It's funnily enough, I think it just comes naturally of with me leading. I'm not much of a talker when it comes to all the tactical and technical stuff, all that kind of stuff. It's my stuff's being led by my actions, and that's what I've been doing these past few years here in DC and even in the international stuff with the Eagles. Just leading with my actions and just doing what I do, and that's play rugby, and that's either with my tackling or my ball carrying. And I think if the game's going well and I'm performing well just through my actions, then the team will follow. And then I think that becomes the easier part when, if I have confidence in myself leading this team and in my actions and in myself just to stay on the field, then everyone else in the organization and the team itself will follow along, and I trust everybody else in the team, trust the coaches. And that's the awesome part of making my job easier is if everyone trusts me and I just get to do my thing, then leading this team and leading this city into victory is easy.
Well, I hope you're right, and we're all supporting you and rooting for you in a big way. And just the last one for me is that you mentioned depth a couple of times, and this year players don't know who's on the team this week, and that's invoking great competition within the squad. And you also mentioned that you've been here from the start. Would you say this is the strongest Old Glory squad that you've been part of?
Yes, definitely. You know, I think the previous years we've had a lot of good talents, a good starting 15, but obviously with this kind of league, as soon as you have an international or a foreign player go down, the depth behind that is not that great. But I think this year, with Tito coming in at 10, we have the ability to put Graydon, the Canadian international in as well. And then you also have Chicken coming in as well as a third string option, which is, I think that's some of the top 3 in the league with regards to the game driving of a rugby field. And then when it comes to, the front row, we have, the new Argentina prop coming in, and he's a big boy. So, it's exciting to have that kind of experience coming in, especially because I think that's what's kind of lacked in the past years, just having not just the depth, but the rugby knowledge of driving, the young players coming through this team. And it's kind of crazy because the team's not even announced for next week, but it's going to be tough, especially after last week's performance against Chicago. And then a lot of the injured boys coming back, with Corey hopefully coming back next week as well. So that loose 4 positions up for grabs to anybody in this team. So it's going to be exciting times for the rest of the year, and it's going to be a hard time for the coaches, but they must enjoy that part.
And Jamason, before we kind of start looking ahead to those coming weeks here, obviously you got the bye week coming up and then a big matchup against Rugby New York in the near future. You talk about leading the team. Obviously, a big part of that, I assume that you take a lot of pride in, is also leading this pack. And you talk about physicality and aggression. I mean, you showed it this matchup. The whole pack did. I mean, every single starting forward, according to the stats, got double-digit tackles. You yourself, 16 tackles, perfect with your 16 tackles made out of the 16 that you attempted. Is that something that you guys as a pack really focused on in this offseason, maintaining that physicality? Because that was incredible. It was the best numbers out of any pack, I think, out of the entire week, out of any of the MLR teams, for sure.
It's pretty awesome to have a coach like Callum Gibbons come in and lead that defense. Our main driver for this year has just been connection in defense, and trusting your inside and outside man. And if we're able to stay connected throughout our defense and not shoot up when we're feeling, vulnerable in our defense, and just trusting everybody on the team that we'll be able to do our job, then, no one can get through our line. As you can see, I think Chicago only scored 3 tries, I think, on the weekend. So, Carly especially has just driven that into our brains, just always be connected and have that mentality of just being safe, have that feeling of being safe in defense. And I think that's what the players do, because, we trust everybody can tackle in the rugby, but if you're able to trust your inside guy, then you can do, you're just able to do whatever you want to do. So defense has definitely been a big driver in our preseason. And, we all know from a lot of different sports is defense wins championships. So I guess if we keep driving that, we'll see some good results in the future.
Well, you just got this big victory and you have all this momentum, and now you're going into a bye on the second week, which is a little bit crazy to me, but that's the professional sports sometimes. So how your job now, Jamason, as captain, is how do you create that this week of a new learning environment, trying to push forward, getting everybody fully up to speed? You mentioned Corey. We have that gentleman called Herrera also waiting to go. We've got to get these guys into camp, and then go on to week 3 where you will be playing your second game. That's a long time. What are you guys preparing to do in the meantime to get there?
Obviously now it's just rest. The boys, we had a longer preseason than usual in the previous years. So I think the boys, the team and the coaches especially, have earned the rest. So then we're back into it on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. at the moment, the boys are just resting up. We're going through the footage and going through our preview and reviews of the footage, which will be on Wednesday for that Chicago and then going into New York game. But I think now, these seasons are long, and end of the day, it's pretty much last man standing. Whoever's team is left standing is going to win this league. So the more time we have off to recover and get our bodies right and get our mind right, and just, this is a good time for the boys to go back with their families and just relax and just, focus on the important things of life, because rugby is, second to family as always, and being back with our partners and all that kind of stuff. So I think now is actually kind of a perfect timing as a week 2 bye, because now after this, then we can just go straight in for 6 weeks, and that's going to be good.
Speaking of that 6 weeks, now that Wednesday comes up, you guys are done kind of like recovering, recouping, getting that much needed relaxation in before the long haul. What do you think are the key areas within the attack and defensive structure of the team that you need to focus on to sort of carry this momentum into another win against New York?
Yeah, so again, going back to previous years, our set piece has definitely been one of our letdowns throughout our Old Glory's history. And I think just from the game on the weekend, if we get our lineouts and we get our scrums right, then it's awesome. The backs can play. We have some of the best backs in that back line. And if we're able to set a platform for them, then it's going to be a fun season for the forwards. So I think our main focus as a forward pack is just get our set piece right. Stan's driving that really well, and he's leading the boys, and that's his his superpower is those lineouts. So if we're able to keep doing what we're doing and just improving on those lineouts and just able to create that set piece, and with the new prop coming in as our secret weapon is what we're calling him, he's coming in. So I don't think we're going to be able to. We just have to be able to keep that set piece going forward and just improving every week, because like I said, the back line is where we're going to be getting our points from, and if we're able to beat them up physically with our awesome forward pack, then I don't think many teams will be able to stand with us.
Oh,
definitely. The scrums, that's the soul of the team. That hasn't changed in the game. No matter how fast the game gets, how players, it's always the pack.
Exactly right.
Spoken like a true eight. He's not going to say no to that, right? Exactly. But no, Jamason,
we know how to butter up the back row. We know how to butter up.
There you go. But Jamason, I really appreciate you breaking that down for us again. We were super excited to see OGDC come out of the gates like that, and especially like we mentioned, with what was a rough season. I mean, firsthand of how it went last year. To see you guys kind of make a statement coming out the gates here is going to be it's super fun, and just gets us, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners, taste buds going here for what they can expect for the rest of the season. But for you, man, enjoy the week off. I guess it comes early, can heal up here, and like you said, you're not playing hard unless you're getting a little bit of a few knocks here and there. So rest up, and then we'll be excited to see you come in 2 weeks, and it'll be super fun. But appreciate you taking the time, man.
Beautiful. Ryan, Roly, Farrah, Gav, thank you very much. Enjoy the week. See you guys in a few weeks.
Jama.
Best of luck for the season.
Appreciate it, Jama.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, coming after the break here. I mean, Jama mentioned some of those secret weapons he got. They got some Argentinian ties here. So we're going to talk with a very special guest here. ESPN's Trinidad Bavio coming on here in just a moment's time to break down some of that Argentinian influence and how it's so vital for this Old Glory team, especially in that victory against the Chicago Hounds, and what I'm sure is going to be a vital piece of this Old Glory side moving forward. We're going to talk with her and break that all down and get her kind of outlook about not only the Argentinians come into this OGDC side, but also as the MLR as a whole, because as you can all know, for MLR fans out there, they're definitely coming in waves. But we're going to have that coming up right after break here on the Road to Glory podcast. But first, Old Glory DC is excited to welcome back our friends at the Supply Room, your business office supply vendor located in the Mid-Atlantic. Visit thesupplyroom.com to learn how to create a smarter office. We'll be right back.
At MedStar Health, we're doing everything we can to prepare for what if. Like, what if you need care right now? We have the region's largest network of urgent care centers. Or what if you think you're out of options? Patients continue to turn to us after losing hope elsewhere. Or what if you can't get to care? Our mobile care units bring care to our communities because treating people means being prepared to treat them when what if happens. MedStar Health. It's how we treat people.
Pro rugby in the nation's capital is here. Are you on board the road to glory? Back to upping the flags with your hosts Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome back to the Road to Glory podcast. Ryan Yee, Farrah Douglas, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt. Just wrapped up a awesome conversation with Old Glory team captain Jamason Fa'anana-Schultz. A lot of insight there off of a big win against the Chicago Hounds. And like we said during that interview, I think it only gets Old Glory fans even more excited about what is to come in this 2023 year. But also something that is getting fans, I think, pretty excited is a bunch of players that have made a huge impact that have come from overseas, from Argentina. And we are very lucky to be joined by ESPN's Trinidad Bavio, who knows a thing or two about Argentinian rugby and the players that are here in DC playing for the Old Glory DC. Trinidad, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to kind of help us break down the impact that these players are having for the Old Glory DC off of a big win.
First of all, thank you for having me. I told you Argentinian players are all over the world, but also journalists that join another podcast. I'm very happy to be here with you guys. And yeah, you are right. Argentinian players, well, here in Old Glory DC have been, I think, pretty important, but not only in this club, but also in the MLR. They are everywhere. And I think it's pretty cool to have sometimes an Argentinian or a foreign player, right, in our club, not only because how they play, but also the new ideas, the different, culture also to play rugby, because rugby is not played the same all over the world. So pretty excited to see some Argentinians in Old Glory.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get right into it then. Let's start breaking down some of these players that are having an impact here with Old Glory DC. I mean, when you look at the lineup that Old Glory DC put out, you're talking about three big-time starters making a huge impact. Obviously, we all know Tito Diaz-Bonilla doing what he did in this matchup. We have Lautaro Bavaro also scoring a try in the matchup as well. Fermin Martinez playing the whole 80 minutes, and then a few subs here and there. So just your overall kind of first impressions watching this Old Glory DC side and the impact that these Argentinian players have had on this team, especially in that first matchup. What are your overall thoughts there?
You said it was the first match, and I think that's not easy because, of course, a lot of players are in the team and you have to get used to the ideas, what the coaches are asking for. But overall, I want to start with Lautaro Bavaro in the forward team. He's an excellent player. He comes from Indú, that is I think the most important or one of the most important clubs in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. He's a very fierce player. He loves to tackle. He's been always a main character in any game that he plays. He's a very smart one, and you can see we were talking a few minutes ago in the lineouts, in especially the set pieces. He's a very important player, not only the lineouts, only the scrum, the maul that you also, we saw the chance to Old Glory make everything out of the set pieces very good, but Lautaro is a very good and interesting player, and I think you saw it. You talked about Tito Diaz-Bonilla. He has international experience. He's been in the Premiership. He's now been in South Africa. Of course, he played for Los Pumas not as much as I think he would love to play there wearing the Argentinian jersey, but he's a very smart player. He's very talented. He has a very, very good kicking game. And in those 80 minutes, we could see that Tito, when he had the chance and had the ball, he took very good decisions. So I think that for him being the first match, it's going to be a very good start. But I know we can see a lot more of him and also like connecting with the other players. And then Fermín Martínez, that maybe is a player that you may not think is like the strongest because he was playing with the number 13 jersey, but he is very talented. The ones that make the silent work, you know, but has very good skills. And of course, well, Marcos Young and Alejandro De Roda coming from the bench, but also two very interesting players, young. So I'm looking forward to the season for these players.
Very good. Trinidad, can you talk to us a little bit also about the Super Rugby Americas Championship, which kicked off this last weekend? Also, I've got to be honest with you, I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that the American Raptors are part of it now. So maybe you can speak a little bit about that for us as well.
Yeah, well, the Super Rugby Americas, I think it has the intention to grow rugby along the American continent. We know that Argentina is probably the strongest country because we have a lot of players in terms of that, you know, we have a lot of players. We really want and have the objective in Argentina to have like more players available, you know, because from Los Pumas to the second team, maybe there's a lot of difference between the players. So for example, this year in Super Rugby Americas, Argentina has two teams that are Pampas and Lobos, one from Buenos Aires and the other one from Córdoba. So I think that from Argentinian point of view, it's a good platform to see players and maybe have more options, you know, when someone gets injured or anything, and new talents that can probably go to Los Pumas. And also, for example, we have Peñarol, that is the Uruguay team that we've seen that Uruguay has been growing a lot the last few years. They've been in the World Cup in Japan and made a very great World Cup, and they were champions. So in that terms, we have a lot of competition nearby, but then you have Paraguay, for example, or Brazil, that are getting into the rugby world, you know, but are trying to get into competition because I think there's a lot of difference of level. And then, for example, you have Selknam and the American Raptors. For Selknam, it's a very important year because they classified to the World Cup for the first time in their history. They won, I'm pretty sure that you're aware, to the USA, but it was a pretty tough game. It was amazing. So I think Selknam, the Chilean team, is going to take this competition as a preparation to the World Cup that is going to be in September in France. And I was a little bit surprised about the performance of American Raptors that, of course, we are going to talk about them, but I know that you're not going to be the World Cup, but I thought that there was going to be more like USA players. And also we have a lot of presence of Argentinian players like Martín Landajo that played in Los Pumas, Lucas González Amorosino also played in Los Pumas. But I thought I was expecting a little bit more of the team. I don't know why, but of course, Selknam, that is practically the team that is going to the World Cup, was so determined on what they were going to do in that match. So yeah, Super Rugby Americas is going to give you a lot of surprises, but also it's going to be different for every team because they have different goals, you know, and that's the thing that I see it's going to happen in Super Rugby Americas.
And how does rugby continue to grow in a country like Argentina? It's obviously soccer crazy, and we saw the success of the Soccer World Cup this year. Like, how does rugby develop in a country that's so in love with soccer?
We are in love with soccer, even if we do not play rugby. Soccer is like, oh my God, it's amazing, and we are in our best time because we are world champions, and that was amazing. The thing is, yeah, rugby is pretty popular. but it's amateur. So it's not that easy because you have to give 100%. And I'm not saying it's that bad, but a lot of players from Argentina sometimes go to play overseas because of the money. You know, Argentina is not easy to live. It's fun. It's a great country, but I think that some players go to look for an opportunity, not only professionally, but because of the money. And here it grew up a lot in that sense. A lot of people is playing rugby, not only boys, but also girls. And they are trying to get better, you know, to get that level up. But it's pretty popular. We have tons of clubs. A lot of people just play for the joy of playing rugby. But I also think that in Buenos Aires specifically, rugby grew up a lot because we've seen also the past 2 years, or maybe it's Mario Ledesma, Michael Cheika, Michael Cheika is the actual coach of the Los Pumas, and Mario Ledesma also with Jaguares. I don't know if you remember Super Rugby, Jaguares, because of the pandemic, it disappeared, but that made rugby grow up a lot because a lot of kids that thought that they were only going to play in their clubs, like there's a chance, you know, we can be good playing rugby. And I think that's why it grew a lot in the last couple of years. And I think we have a major goal that is France 2023. We have our hopes up. You know, Argentina is always a team that can be fighty, but we need to get that step up. We wish for a semifinals, for a final, but I think that's why rugby grew up a lot. But it's, I think it's not minor to say that it's amateur here, and it's not that easy to put the same energy as if you were a professional when it's an amateur sport, but we are rugby lovers, and I think that's not going to change.
Well, I'll be cheering Argentina after Ireland in the World Cup.
Yay.
So after Ireland.
That's
after
good, yes.
Ireland.
That's key.
So my question for you is sort of what's the overall reaction, your reaction to seeing a much larger Argentinian influence joining the MLR, specifically with like Old Glory and Dallas. And then kind of like the sidebar to that is, I think that overall in the MLR, we're seeing a much stronger representation of South American players. What impact do you think that that's going to have on the type and level of play in the MLR? And do you think that we'll start to see more South American players who are US eligible looking for opportunities to make a name here? And how does that impact the growth of the game in South America?
Well, first of all, I think it's a good thing that Argentinians go to the MLR because, as I told you a few minutes ago, it's professional. Sometimes it's good to live the professional life, you know, like eat well, train every day. You just have to go and you know, live your life just for your club and not worry for work or your job and everything. Is like, I think it's a very good opportunity for the people that is eager to get better, you know, because I'm sure that the all the people that go to play to the MLR is because they really want to get better. And I've talked to Marcelo Blanco that you've talked about him, and as he was here in Argentina and recruited Tito Díaz Bonilla and also Lautaro Bávaro, Fermín Martínez, is like, you have good players in the MLR. I think that's going to, as I told you, level up. They are skilled players. And I know that USA was so close to get to the World Cup this year. We played each other the last World Cup in 2019, but I think you have to be surrounded by challenging players, you know, that are good. For example, Tito Díaz Bonilla, if he's playing against a USA player as a fly half the next match, it's going to challenge him and be better, you know, and you have to learn from those players that have a good level. In terms of the Argentinian players that are in the MLR and are looking for a chance maybe to be eligible, as you told me, if you don't have the chance here, that sometimes it's not easy, you know, because now Argentina has, 25, 26, 27-year-old players, so they have a long way playing with Los Pumas. So I think it's good not only for the Argentinian players but also for the USA, because that as also you have to always look forward and look better for your level of rugby, and you can give us some tools from the USA rugby, and Argentina can bring you also some tools like the set pieces. Like, we are not the best in the world, but we know, for example, Hugo Barrera that was not available to play the last week, but can be the next match. I mean, he's going to give you a lot of tools and knowledge because he's experienced, and I think that's going to help not only the Argentinian people, but also the USA players that can get a lot of knowledge from them.
No, that's great to hear. There's a couple things I take from there. One is that I think if OGDC fans weren't already impressed with, I guess, the Argentinian influence that they have with this team, now that they've seen that first match and what the impact that they had against the Chicago Hounds, they're definitely pretty excited about that. And then I think you're talking about a flood of Argentinian players wanting to come and play professional. I think at this point in time, I think a lot of fans would open their arms and gladly welcome any more skilled players that coming in after seeing the impact that Tito Diaz-Bonilla had, Fermin Martinez, and all the rest of the players here on the squad. So gonna be super exciting stuff. Really appreciate the insight, Trinidad, because again, Argentina is obviously a place that feels pretty distant from here, but it sounds like the presence and the culture and all that is definitely making an impact here in the MLR and with this Old Glory DC side. So appreciate the time and thanks for joining us. And I'm sure with now there being a lot of Argentinian players on this team, that we'll definitely have you on again and make sure that we continue this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. If there are players in the MLR, why not in the OGDC podcast? So whenever you need me, I'm going to be here.
It's a reflection of the team, right? That's what we're doing here on the Road to Glory podcast. There's a lot of Argentinians on the OGDC's team, so we got to make sure that we bring in an Argentinian here on the show as well. So, no, appreciate your time, Trinidad. And again, we'll be super excited to break it all down with you again soon. Coming up, I think this is the portion that a lot of people and a lot of our viewers are waiting for, their prediction segment. We had someone that went absolutely perfect in their first week. We'll see whether or not they can keep that going. Some of the rest of us not as good, but we'll see if we can make up for it. That's coming up right after a short break. But first, Mighty Meals is the official meal prep partner of Old Glory DC. These chef-prepared healthy meals can be delivered fresh to you 4 times a week. Order your next meal now at mightymeals.com. We'll be right back.
Knowledge. It's where innovation begins. It's what leads us to discovery and motivates us to succeed. It's why we ask the tough questions and what leads us to the answers. At Leidos, we're standing behind those working to improve the world's health, safety, and efficiency. Leidos.
Are you looking for an exciting and unforgettable live sporting event? Look no further than Old Glory DC, your hometown Major League Rugby franchise. Don't miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see professional rugby up close. With a mix of strength, skill, and strategy, rugby is a sport like no other. Whether you're coming alone, with friends, or looking for unique family entertainment, Old Glory DC has something for everyone. Be a part of this unique experience. Get your tickets now at oldglorydc.com. That's oldglorydc.com.
Pro rugby in the nation's capital is here. Are you on board the road to glory? Back to upping the flags with your hosts Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas.
Welcome back to the Road to Glory podcast. Ryan Yee, Gavin Hickey, Roland Pratt, and Farrah Douglas. And it's the moment that a lot of our viewers have been waiting for. I think we're a little bit split here as hosts here on looking forward to this segment, because some of us did a little bit better than others in our last week's prediction segment. So we'll see whether or not some of us can turn it around and some of us can keep it going. But like we mentioned throughout the show, Old Glory DC on a bye this week, so they are not a part of our predictions this week, but we picked 3 other matchups. We got to give a recap, though, and as much as it pains me to do this and go through how last week went, we still got to reveal it for our viewers. So every week, we're going to choose 3 matchups of our choosing. Typically, that will include the Old Glory DC matchup. This week, like I said, on bye, so it won't be in this one. But that being said, our very own Farrah Douglas going absolutely perfect last week with her predictions 3-0, choosing the Legion, Old Glory DC, and Seattle in their victories there. The only one to choose Seattle in that upset win against the former MLR champions. Coming up next, Roland Pratt, 2-1. Was right there with the Legion and Old Glory DC. Again, not picking Seattle there in that matchup, going with Rugby New York. And Gavin, you and I are at the bottom here, buddy. Utah weren't right there. Rugby New York, we weren't right there. But we did get the one that does matter most, picking Old Glory DC. So at least that's got to count for something. But we'll try to turn it around here.
We're in good company down the bottom. So, last man standing. Let's get it right this week.
I mentioned it ahead of the show. I said, we're just giving Farrah, we're just giving, I'll even throw Roly up there too. We're just giving you guys a little bit of a head start before we start really picking things up here. So we'll see how it goes.
Blind here, folks.
and we mentioned that this week's matchups are a little bit tricky here. There's no really blatant winners here. I think it could really go either way in any of these matchups. So let's start off the bat here. We're going breaking down Seattle Seawolves, Rugby Atlanta, Houston SaberCats, NOLA Gold, and San Diego Legion against the New England Free Jacks. 3 matchups that I think are going to be a lot of fun to watch this weekend. Let's open up with the Seattle Seawolves and Rugby Atlanta. Farrah, you're the one that is at the top here, so I got to give it to you first. Who do you think is winning in that matchup?
Seattle.
You're sticking with your guns there. They did you well in the first round, so you got to stick with them in the second, eh?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Roly?
She's not wrong. I think it's Seattle too, but also simply because Atlanta shouldn't be playing in green. That's Seattle's color. So,
Yeah.
Give Chicago their jerseys back.
What about you, Gav?
Yep, I'm going to have to go clean sweep Seattle as well. I didn't see enough out of Rugby ATL to challenge what looks like a pretty strong team in the making in Seattle.
I guess we're just all hedging our bets here, so I'm going to go Seattle as well.
Hey, listen, if Farrah picks it, I'm going with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now we're just sticking with it.
Yeah, make her go last, because
exactly.
All right, just going to copy her.
All right, so we got Seattle up here across the board. Let's see if that changes here for this next matchup. Houston SaberCats taking on the NOLA Gold in Houston. Farrah, I'll go with you again. Who are you going here?
Houston.
Houston SaberCats. Roly?
Oh God. I thought NOLA looked pretty poor against New England. I think Houston should win this game as well. Yeah, I'm going to go with Houston.
Exact same reasons. I am going with what you said, Roly. Spot on.
Yeah.
Now I feel bad going the way that I'm going to. There were 2 guys I was really psyched about heading into the season. Luertz Vanderskiff and Hanko Gramicius, both on Houston. They had absolute star performances last match. I'm going to go Houston too. So we're all playing safe here. We got to make it a little bit interesting here. Let's switch it up here a little bit. San Diego Legion, New England Free Jacks. I feel like this one's going to be a little bit more split because I think out of all the matchups that we're breaking down here, this is probably the one that we're splitting hairs with. Farrah, I'll let you go first here. New England or San Diego?
This was a tough one, but I'm gonna go with my New England Free Jacks.
I think I'll go with San Diego in this one. The atmosphere was enough alone. I think is worth a few extra points at Starfire. It was just hectic. They played well as a team. New England, another week on the road there. I think it's just maybe a little bit too much for them. I'm going to take the home team in this one, guys.
Well, I am obviously sticking with Farrah's picks. So I'm going to go. I think I'd be very interested to see what the numbers are like in Snapdragon this week. If they can do it 2 weeks in a row, I think that's going to be really telling.
That'll be huge.
It will be. Yeah, I agree with that. It's 1 p.m. Eastern time kickoff for the Free Jacks. I think they'll be able to adjust. I think the Free Jacks are just a gritty team who are going to grind out a result against San Diego this week.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with it's tough to go against what we saw at Snapdragon Stadium because when you're putting 11,000 people in the seats, it's pretty credible to see. But nonetheless, I think I'll side with New England Free Jacks as well. So Roly, you're with the lone pick here, so you have a chance here to tie it up at the very least. heading into.
I've never been
into
afraid to
third
be a loner, Ryan.
and that's the confidence that I love to see. But yeah, like we said, a dinner is on the line, and Roly threw in a beer there as well, possibly. So we'll see. We'll keep it going. But yeah, we'll hopefully have things turn around here a little bit for Gavin and I. Farrah will look to go keep it perfect, and Roly with the one difference pick here. We'll see if he can tie it up at the top spot. But again, super exciting stuff. OGDC on that bye week. They don't play until the following week against Rugby New York on Masson. We'll have to wait and see for them to put out another big time performance like we saw against the Chicago Hounds. But like we heard from Jamason Fa'anana-Schultz, it really sounds like this team has a whole bunch of confidence, and they're not going to let one bye week get in their way in terms of keeping that going. So it should be exciting stuff. Any final words about what you guys saw this week, or what you're excited about here with OGDC? And it's on the field now. There was a lot of speculation heading into the season, but now we've actually got some things that we can use as evidence here that OGDC surely look like they're turning things around.
Just excited for more. That's all. It was a great week of rugby. I think some of the games this weekend are going to be fantastic, especially the ones we just highlighted. But roll on week 3, to be honest with you. I just got to see some more of this old glory team. They just look fantastic right now.
Yeah, I just want to I want to see them keep this momentum.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And in between the rugby games on Saturday, I was resting with my 4-year-old, my 2-year-old. And see, now I've got a nice cut on my nose because my 2-year-old decided to smash me with this little dinosaur cup. So that's why I have a face for radio today.
Yes.
Unlike most days.
If it ain't on the rugby pitch, it's from your 4-year-old son, right, Gav?
Exactly.
It's got to come from somewhere. But yeah, super exciting stuff. Again, that game will be on Mass in Rugby New York in 2 weeks' time. A little bit of scouting work here for the fans this weekend to check out these other teams, put a little bit of time in these other matchups. Will be super fun stuff. And of course, we'll be back next week to preview that matchup against Rugby New York, talk about what we saw in this round 2. MLR's in full swing now, which is a lot of fun, and it's finally here, and it feels like the hype is real. So super exciting stuff. Again, make sure you give us a like, subscribe, give us a follow as well. The Road to Glory podcast, wherever you find podcasts, also on YouTube this season too. Also give the team a follow as well at Old Glory DC. Should be exciting stuff. For Roland Pratt, for Gavin Hickey, for Farrah Douglas, we'll be back next week on the Road to Glory podcast.
You've been listening to the Road to Glory podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything Old Glory DC and beyond. From expert team analysis to exclusive interviews and more, you'll always find it right here. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Old Glory DC. Catch you next time on the Road to Glory podcast.